so hopefully you join me because you're going to learn how to make a grave pot today. So I'll go through what's included in the kit for you. So we've got the plant pot that it's going to go in. These are 10 centimetres across, and this just slots into the hole by the graveside. I have used 2 pots and pushed them together just because it is quite flimsy, so it just makes it a bit more stable. You've got a third of a block of oasis, which is the water source for the design. So this will soak up the water and provide water so that it will last quite a long time, this design. Because there's no fresh flowers and it's just foliage and accessories, you're looking at about 3-4 weeks, even longer if it's outside, because it's going to be in the damp, the cold, the rain, so it really will last a long time. So the first thing you need to do with the oasis is just pop it in some water. So either a bucket of water or you can fill up your kitchen sink. Don't push the oasis down, just pop it on top of the water and it will just slowly absorb the water. If you do push it down, it'll just create air bubbles within the foam and it won't fully absorb, so just leave it. If you've not got deep enough water, once it's sunk to the bottom, you can just turn it and it will just keep absorbing. So the foliage that we've got, so I've provided you with about 6 pieces. So we've got some fresh spruce and a couple of pieces of holly as well. We've got a nice piece of pussy willow. Oh gosh, and I probably will have cut this down for you just to make it a bit easier because you're not going to need 2 longer pieces. So I will have cut that down into 2 or 3 pieces. I've got a piece of bleached ruscus. This has just been preserved, so it's kind of dried, but they've also bleached it so it looks really frosty and nice. I've got some pine cones. I will have already wired these for you, just to make it a little bit easier. I'll just do mine now. Okay, and you've got some apple slices and orange slices that I've home dried, bundle of cinnamon sticks, and about 3 lots of these artificial berries, so you'll have 9 altogether that I've also wired. And you've got a card with a nice sleeve and a prong, just so you can write a nice message on your grave pot and just pop it in and it won't get wet or run or anything. It's got the sleeve. And what you'll need, so you'll need a pair of scissors and a pair of secateurs. You don't need fancy ones, just out your garden shed or your kitchen cupboard will be fine. So as you can see, my oasis is just sunk to the bottom, and because my water level doesn't reach over the top, I'm just going to turn it over and just drop it in and just let it finish absorbing. So it doesn't take too long, about 10 minutes. You don't need to add any flower food to the water because it's already provided in the oasis, just so that your design lasts as long as possible. You will also need, just forgot, a knife. I've just got a floristry knife, but literally the knife that you eat your dinner with is perfectly fine because it doesn't need to be sharp or anything like that. It's just to cut the oasis so that it'll fit into this container. So we'll just give it another minute. You can just give it a bit of a poke in the middle and that just untraps any air bubbles, and you will just see it bubbling out slightly like mine is. Okay. Lovely. So you will notice when it's done is it will turn the darker shade of green, like so. So we need it to fit into this container. So what I would recommend is you measure it slightly. You do want it to come above the container, just so that when you're putting stuff in from the side, you're not having to try and angle it down, and it make sure this is nice and covered. So what I would recommend doing is just cutting it like this. I'll just mark it. So just kind of cutting the corners off, and it's very soft. Just pop that back in. It's just got a bit of an air bubble in it. You'll notice when it has, because it'll just be a bit lighter coloured like that. So if you just poke it, pop it in, just drop it. This is an old piece of oasis because you can reuse them, so that'll be the reason why. I'll just cut the top off a little bit. I don't want it to be sticking out too much, just a couple of centimetres. So you just pop it in your container, just push it in, and it'll feel quite secure. And then there's just a bit above, just so that we've got somewhere to put them stems around the outside. And you can just discard that oasis. So the best place to start with this is if you look for your biggest piece of spruce. Now, when you put it into the oasis, you just need to make sure you've got clean stems. So you need about 2 or 3 centimetres that you're pushing into the oasis, and just make sure them stems are clean, so no foliage on them. Like so, and I would start, like I say, with your biggest piece, just because the shape that we're trying to create with the grave pot is kind of triangular. Obviously, if you want to do a round design, you can, but usually it's just viewed from the front, so it would kind of have a triangle shaped, and then this kind of just sets that triangular shape. Now, with this first piece, because it is a front-facing design, you don't want it in the middle, because otherwise you're going to run out of room at this front block of oasis, because we haven't got loads to work with. So you kind of need to go about 3/4 back, and I would also angle it slightly that way and push it in, because otherwise if you angle it all forward, it's going to be off balance, because it's all going to want to come tip forward. Okay, so you got that first piece in, and then I'll carry on with the shape that we're trying to create, which is kind of a triangular shape. So clean your stems and give them a cut as well, because they do seal over once they're out of water. So I'll just kind of pop that in there just to carry on with that shape. Do the same on the other side, so clean that stem. About 2 or 3 centimetres you need to push into the foam so it's nice and secure. Pop that one there. And the focal area, so the main part of the design is this front bit here. That's where you want to kind of draw your eye into from these outer edges. So that's where you're kind of going to put your bow and then put a bit more of your accessories around, because you want the person that's looking at it, their eye to go straight to that point. And so you kind of want to graduate it down, so you want kind of smaller and smaller pieces going forward. So I'll pop that one there, because it'll just really help bring that eye into that part of the design. Just trim this one. There we go. And as you kind of get to the front, you want to kind of come at a horizontal angle in, like so. And you can cut your pieces down that I've given. You don't have to use them in the size that they are. You can make them smaller. Okay. Be careful with the holly, it is particularly spiky. With Oasis, once you've kind of made the hole where you put the stem, it's quite hard then to take it out and re-put things in, just because eventually there's not much of the Oasis left if you keep taking things out. So you've kind of got to be quite definite where you can put things. I mean, you can take them out once or twice, but I wouldn't recommend doing it too much. Okay, so if I look at my design, I kind of need something a bit there, I'd say, just to really see that shape. There we go. So I would say about half full. So if you have a look, the Oasis is still bare at the back, and there's still, if you look in there, bits that you can see, because the idea is that you fully cover that because it's not very sightly. So I'd say about half cover it before you start putting your accessories in, because if you put loads of foliage in, you're going to run out of space, and it's going to be quite hard to put anything else extra in there. Okay, so I'll start with the Pussy Willow. So you might want your long piece at the back just to help kind of show the shape that you've got within your design, and then kind of get shorter as you get towards the front. There we go. And I'll pop that piece there. That just helps kind of move the eye downwards into this focal. Okay, and then you've got your nice piece of dried ruscus. Just creates a really nice snowy look. And then with your accessories that are already mounted on wires, just because then it's really easy to pop them in the foam, you can cut them down if they're a bit too long. So just grab some wire cutters, just cut it to the length that you want. Find roughly where you want to put it. Like I say, the bow, because it's quite big, I would put near the bottom in that focal area. There we go. And then same with your accessories, if you do want to cut them down, you can. And try and kind of disguise that wire as much as possible when you're putting it in, just because obviously it's not the nicest. Okay. Your berries, it's quite nice just to tuck them in, obviously because naturally they would appear just on the stems rather than on a wire. Just kind of push it in just where near the holly is, just because obviously you get your nice buried holly. Okay, and there's not really any set place where you need to put your accessories, you just kind of put them where you want them, but like I say, towards the middle creates that nice focal area. There we go. And then at the end, what I would recommend, so if you have run out of the foliage that I provided you, just because as you can see there's a bit of foam at the back, if you're not bothered about that because it is forward facing the grave, just leave it. Obviously within the floristry world we're always taught to cover those kinds of things, but it doesn't really matter if you're not bothered by it. And you can see a few little pieces there. So what I would recommend is you could cut any foliage from your garden. So conifer and ivy is a really good one because it's really long lasting, just like the spruce and holly. And it will just, you just get some quite small pieces and just kind of push them in, and it'll just cover up that foam, okay? And then I've also provided you with a nice card and sleeve in which you can just pull it out, write a message on, and then just tuck it in. So wherever you really want on your design, I'd say more towards the back so it doesn't kind of take away from the pieces that you've popped in, just like that. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me or send me a message on social media. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you enjoy making your own floristry grave pot. Thanks very much, guys.